I am so conservative.
Rationalize in my head. These are things I read. In the
I'm going to talk about Willow Creek.
Okay.
Willow Creek, a few years back, had
Remember
invited.
a time when Will Rogers said, I don't belong to any organized religion. I'm a Baptist.
Yeah. I am so conservative. If you didn't jump to conclusions, you might not get any exercise.
Oh, I forgot to. I have my whole mirror here. Oh no, my mirror just.
I am so conservative. I am so conservative.
Welcome to the Unknown Webcast. For those who may doubt how conservative I am, Ron can affirm that I am indeed so conservative I can't turn left even when I'm driving. This is a trigger warning for those who are new to this webcast. They should be aware this is not a safe space for those who may be easily offended by having their ideas challenged or by our satire. Today is October 29, 2019. This is broadcast number 164. This week, our friend and associate who distances herself from our satire joins us to talk about Halloween myths. My name is Don Vino. I'm president of Midwest Christian Outreach in Wonder Lake, Illinois, which produces the Unknown Webcast. Our senior researcher is Ron Hensel, who will introduce the sponsors of today's webcast. And here is Ronnie.
Greetings from sunny Florida. There we go. Greetings from sunny Florida, where the palm trees came out, saw their shadows, and now we have 12 more months of summer. Our sponsors for this webcast include the Coexist Boutique. For when you care enough to take your hands off your loved ones' throats long enough to pick out the perfect gift, the Coexist Boutique. And Assimilation Ministries, where implanted in the body is not just a slogan. Assimilation Ministries. And if you would like to keep the program coming your way because you like it so much, or if it really annoys you and you just want to see it inflicted on somebody else, to ensure continued access, please go to MidwestOutreach.org, click the yellow donate button, and contribute as you feel led. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. So, yeah, we don't. You might want to fluff that up for yourself there, Marcia.
Yeah, fluff that up. Get nice and comfy, cozy.
I forgot to adjust it before the program, so it's all crooked and wrinkled.
Yes. Well, I gave up on trying to be adjusted. Now I just remain maladjusted.
Yeah, you're maladjusted.
Or you see it wrinkled.
Well, maybe if you went to a chiropractor, you'd be able to make those left-hand turns. I don't know.
I don't want to. I don't like turning left. It just makes me nervous as anything. Marcia Montenegro is subjecting herself to our satire and humor and bad ideas again, and we are so glad she puts up with us. Marcia is Cana, Christian Answers for the New Age. What is your website in case anyone is wondering how to reach you?
It is ChristianAnswersForTheNewAge.org. And really, people can just go to Google and write Christian Answers for the New Age, and it will come up right off the bat. So you don't even have to try to do the URL.
And of course, you're on Facebook, so they can go there.
Right. I have a page on Facebook called Christian Answers for the New Age. And if you search that on Facebook, that will come up right away because it's the only page with that name. And I put all of my posts on the New Age and the occult on that page.
Okay. And some of your stuff, like you have a video on the Enneagram. We're going to mention that just because I want to. The Enneagram.
Yeah, just that's good enough reason.
About with it all morning, so that's fine.
I know, and We did you did about a 10-minute, just under 10-minute video of that professionally done, which is also online. And they can get that at your website, at your Facebook page as well, right?
Yes. Well, they would have to look at my Enneagram articles, and the link is there at the end of those articles. There's not a video just posted on my website. No, on my Facebook page. Yes. If you go to the Facebook page, the video is right there. Yes.
Right. And also they can contact us so we can get them the link. So it's really important and becoming more and more critical. However, for today, we're gonna address a question of Halloween myths, myth, myths, because a lot of people seem to be myth taken these days in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
I like that word, myth taken.
Well, I think that sort of describes what we see happening in a lot of areas in life. We have, of course, the myth of Bigfoot. And a lot of false things have been done with that. Photos supposedly of Bigfoot, which turned out later to be the guy's wife in a large costume. Speaking of Halloween, and other individuals creating fake footprints to say that this creature is out there. And if you squint really, really carefully and look how far, you might see Bigfoot, but don't open your eyes wide because then they'll just vanish.
Of course.
So we have that, and we have on nearly every holiday that comes by, you have a large contingent of those who I believe, are Christians, but kind of like myths and go, well, Christmas is pagan, Halloween's pagan, Easter's pagan, everything's pagan. And so you should not celebrate it. Now, I guess I'm going to say, we're not saying you should or shouldn't celebrate any particular thing. That seems to be a matter of conscience, and Paul deals with that in 1 Corinthians and Romans both. On meat sacrifice to idols, for example, he's kind of the original "don't ask, don't tell" guy. If you bought a great grade of meat at the pagan marketplace there, don't tell anyone where you got it. Just serve them. And if you go to someone's houses for dinner, don't ask them where they got it because you might be offended. Just enjoy the steak. Don't ask, don't tell. So that probably applies here as well. Whatever you do.
Can I say a couple of things?
First absolutely.
Paul did say that if it violated someone's conscience, then don't hurt their conscience by doing it or trying to make them think they should do it, because we're not supposed to encourage people to violate their conscience.
And that's why the "don't ask, don't tell" part, though.
Well, yeah.
I mean, if they know,
really say don't tell.
If you can do it without them knowing it and without offending them, that's one thing. Yeah, but you're right. If you can't do it without offending somebody, then don't do it.
I think what bothers me with the whole pagan idols, meat offered to idols thing, is that people try to apply it to everything, and it doesn't apply to everything. Now, in terms of what I say is, if the reasons are good to not observe, then fine, and I know Christmas is not our topic, but Christmas is not pagan, and I have an article on that on my website. I've done posts every year on Facebook for like 6 years in a row. And so if someone says, I'm not going to observe Christmas because it's pagan, it's the wrong reason. Christians should care. This is my big motto. I want a t-shirt that says, Christians should want the facts. Christians should want facts because our faith is based on objective truth. Our faith is based on God, not because we feel that there should be a God, or we think it's a good idea, or we've had an experience that there's a God, but because there's an objective basis for the existence of God. And we have God's word, which has incredible documentary evidence to support it. So we go by evidence and facts, not feelings, not fears, not myths, not rumors, not what other Christians say. Okay, that's another biggie of one of my things. So let's get the facts. And I find too many people don't want them. They would rather believe the myths, or they would rather believe some kind of scary story than the actual truth. And that, to me, is the crux of the problem. That, to me, is the problem.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And there tends to be a great deal of judgmentalism if you don't accept my story.
Right.
About its origins and those sorts of things. And I think there's largely a misconception amongst Christians even about Wicca, for example.
Yes.
And has been for a long time, in part in recent years because of individuals like Mike Warnke's book, Satan Seller, which is a total fraud, or Lauren Stratford's books, which again were proven to be total frauds.
Right.
And all of the evil things that they're doing, which is invented. Now, practicing witchcraft is bad, and it's evil, absolutely. But a lot of the things that they're being accused of doing, they're not doing, which makes it more difficult for a missionary like myself to talk with a Wiccan, because I have to kind of unknot all the false stories that have been told about them,
right,
in order to get to what the truth of the gospel is ultimately.
right.
So how does that impact on the question like Halloween myths? Where would you begin if you were talking with someone who was going, okay, I'm concerned, I don't want to subject my kids to evil behaviors, potentially demonic possession as a result of getting Halloween candy. Where would you begin with someone like that?
Yeah, it's really hard because there are so many layers to it, actually. The thing is, Halloween is a commercial day. It's mainly a big day for the candy companies who probably benefit the most. And it is really, trick-or-treating is just an innocent thing of going to get candy. It's not a pagan practice. That's one layer of it. And then you have the other layer of how some people like to use Halloween to make money off scary stuff. So you have all the scary movies that come out in October. I get Netflix, and I've noticed that this month, the movies they keep promoting are all these scary horror movies. So they use that. So the movie companies and other people try to benefit from the idea that Halloween is scary, and it's about scary, evil, spooky stuff.
But there was a really funny Geico commercial recently. I don't know if you saw it. Where they have these people. They're like in a horror movie, and they go. There's a running car. They can jump in the car and get away, but they go, no, don't go there. Let's go hide behind the chainsaws. And then the narrator goes, if you're in a horror movie, you make dumb decisions. That's what you do. And so it seems like in the horror movies, everybody's always, going into the place they shouldn't and end up getting killed. Right. I just thought I'd throw that in. Okay.
Yeah, that was totally unhelpful.
Makes great Geico commercials.
It might be unhelpful, but it's funny.
Well, yeah, okay. It's kind of
yeah, okay.
I did hear it, and you're just really making my point, Ron. That people capitalize on this idea of horror movies, and they did it in a different way by making it funny.
Yeah.
But they're still using it for their commercial, and their commercial is a way to make money to get customers. So that just proves my point that people use Halloween as a way to get customers, or viewers for movies, or subscribers on Netflix or whatever. So really, you just kind of reiterated what I was saying. So there's that level of it. Then there's another layer of it, and that is that it is one of the 8 holidays observed by people in neo-pagan religions, Wicca, witchcraft, and maybe some others. And it's especially those who observe a Celtic form of witchcraft. There's 8 holidays that come on different days, and one of them is October 31st. And there are legends about it that actually are not just from witchcraft. They go back to, folk legends and folk myths about the veil being the thinnest between this world and the next world at this time of year. So there's communication with the other side. Your psychic powers are supposed to be sharper, etc. So there's that layer. Now, what I want to say about that is the beliefs of people who have those beliefs. It doesn't make it true. There's no such thing as the veil between this world and the next world anyway. That's just a ridiculous, it's a false belief. It's a folk belief, like saying if you break a mirror, you have 7 years of bad luck. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. So to me, my point is Christians should not take any of this stuff seriously because it's coming from a false belief system. I mean, what witches may think about Halloween or what psychics may think about Halloween should have nothing to do with what a Christian thinks about Halloween, because our beliefs are based on truth, not on the fears and superstitions of folk belief or of witchcraft.
Well, so it's a little bit different topic, but it's the same kind of idea. Isn't it kind of what Paul is getting at when he says an idol is nothing and so forth, because we know that they're backed by demons, whereas there is only one true God. So he makes a distinction between the false idols, which are nothing, and false beliefs, and we don't have to be subjected to or overly concerned about it, really.
Exactly. So it's, of course, it's not really true that, somehow people are actually going to be communicating with the dead on Halloween, because you can't communicate with the dead. I mean, that's another topic, and I have an article on it on my website called Spirit Contact. Of course, God forbids attempting to do that. It's an evil practice, and it's connected with pagan beliefs. But there's no day of the year where somehow the veil, which doesn't exist anyway, is thinner than any other time. This is just a belief. It's not a fact. And then there's yet another layer to Halloween, and this is probably maybe the most problematic one. And that is the idea that, and it kind of is related to what we already mentioned, the idea that there are all these people out there who are maybe sacrificing babies or killing people. And that's another myth. And I think Don, I don't know if it was you or not. Someone told me that it probably went back to the satanic panic of the 80s.
Yeah, a lot of that is, yeah.
And I'm thinking also Jack Chick tracks.
Oh, yeah. Good old Jack.
I remember when I was a new Christian, I saw some Jack Chick, it's hard to say his name, Jack Chick tracks.
Say it 5 times real fast.
I can't say it. Yeah, that's a tongue twister. On the occult and on Halloween. And I mean, I was horrified by his tracks. His tracks are more horrifying than Halloween. Let me just put it that way. He had all this stuff that was completely false. I mean, it's just false. Where he got it, I don't know. So, my bottom line is to tell Christians, don't think of Halloween and the occult the way that you think it is because of what you've seen from Hollywood movies. I think that's actually how most Christians, that's their conception of witchcraft and the occult, comes from Hollywood movies and stories that are passed around that are false, that, like the Jack Chick track stories, etc. And people just feed on all this fear, which is ridiculous. Halloween's just another day. It's a day in the calendar year. Just like today, it's really no different than today, except that day people will have certain beliefs and certain activities. They'll participate in or not participate in. So anyway, I do want to say, this is really important for you to know. It's my birthday on Halloween.
Oh,
not only is it my birthday, it's my son's birthday.
Things are beginning to make sense now, Marcia. It's all coming together.
So here's another significant event of this date in history. In 1916, Charles Taze Russell died on a train on Halloween Day.
Oh, he did? Really?
He did. Yes, he did.
Now, this particular day, the 29th, is the day that Anton LaVey died. And Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, I remember after it happened reading that his followers were upset he hadn't died on Halloween. Because, that would have given him a little more mystique. If he had died on Halloween, it would have been tied in with all this stuff about Halloween. And I think they were very disappointed that he died on October 29th. But this day, isn't this also the day Martin Luther nailed his thesis to the door? I mean, you're a Reformation guy, Ron.
October 31st. It was they called it All Hallows Eve or All Saints, the eve of All Saints Day, which is really what Halloween is short for, anyways. So yeah, it was October 31st, 1517. He nailed the 95 Theses on the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg, Germany. Yes.
Thank you. Right. I knew you would have all that stuff, all that information, Ron.
Well, yeah, he's kind of a resident smart guy. So I need him because I am good at just kind of being the public face of Midwest Christian Outreach, but I need someone to be feeding me information so I can sound intelligent as well. And Ron and Joy kind of help me with that.
Ron does that.
But Stephanie says there are so many religious, spiritual days for different religions and spiritual practices all year round. We don't need to worry overly much about one more than another. I think that's true.
Yes, and she makes a good point because there are 7 other days that the neo-pagans, in particular the Wiccans and some of the witches, have as their holidays. So Halloween's only one of 8 of those days, and I don't see people upset on the other days. They probably don't even know what they are, and
probably not, right?
Probably not. Most probably don't know. So if why worry more on one day than another? And I think it's because of these rumors and myths that a lot of people believe in. Now, having said that, just to go back to your example at the beginning of, it's a matter of conscience. There are some people who don't want to participate because it is true that for commercial reasons, a lot of like the horror movies are promoted. You have people in costumes dressed like ghosts or vampires or the devil, or demons. So you have this kind of what some people see as a glorification of evil, and they just don't want to have anything to do with Halloween at all because of that factor. And I say if that, bothers them, if it's because of that and that bothers their conscience, then they should not participate. They should, just whatever they want to do, stay at home with the lights off or go out to eat at a restaurant, which is probably what I'm going to be doing because of my birthday and my son's birthday. Actually, I'm going to treat him on Thursday, and then hopefully on his day off next week, I'll get my birthday dinner. So my birthday dinner will be later. But, if people really feel bothered by it, then I don't think they should participate, but at least don't participate for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons.
Well, I would concur with that. Now, and again, we go back a little bit on history. What are we seeing? And some things many don't really realize. Now, I'm not arguing that it's good or bad. I'm just saying here's what it was. Back to your facts, is that around 900 or so, Christianity sort of invaded the Celtic regions And one of the things that Roman Catholicism did was to syncretize particular holidays in some ways. And so in 1000 AD, they had designated November 2 as All Souls Day, which was a time for honoring the dead. Now, that somehow has gotten sort of incorporated into October 31st with
Yeah.
All Souls Day or All Saints Day, where at one point they were not only praying for the souls of deceased homeowners, relatives, they were calling it souling at the time, but at one point they started believing or teaching that souls could be released from purgatory, which is a very Roman Catholic idea,
Hmm.
on this day if you do certain things.
Yeah.
So, are we advocating any of that?
No, of course not. And by, handing out candy to little kids coming to the door or taking your kids trick or treating, you're not advocating anything except trick or treating. You're advocating that it's okay for your kids to participate in going around and getting some candy, or you're saying I'm fine with giving some candy to these little kids coming to my door. And a lot of people will include tracts, or they'll write Bible verses and tape them to candy bars. One person told me she and her husband did that every year. So a lot of people will use the day, and no matter what the intentions are of other people for that day, they will use it in some way for Christ. A lot of churches will have an event, a harvest festival or whatever, where they invite kids to come, and they'll have games and food and tell Bible stories or share the gospel. Our church in past years, I'm not sure if we still do this, but in past years, we had that, and it was specifically for kids in the neighborhood trying to reach unchurched children, because the area my church is in is like 95% unchurched. It's a very Arlington, Virginia. It's an extremely secular area. It's just almost as secular as you can get. And so the neighborhood is pretty much, you can count on the fact that most of the children in the neighborhood are not churched. And so they would have this outreach and advertise it, and kids from the neighborhood would come, and they, at the very least, hear the gospel, and of course that's always a good thing. So using the day for something like that, I think is a great way to participate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one of the things you were talking about commercialization earlier, and we're going to take a commercial break in a moment. But it seems like, as far as I can tell, that just the phrase "trick or treat" probably became common usage around 1951 when it was used in a Peanuts cartoon. And then in 1952, Disney made a short film with Donald Duck and his nephews Huey, Dewey, and whatever, called Trick or Treat.
Louis, I think.
Yeah, Louis. And so it kind of became popularized in the 1950s, it sounds like.
Yes.
Not unlike Christmas. Christmas sort of took on a new idea or mystique with the story "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," and then of course our Christmas films where Santa Claus is discovered and does the Macy's parade in what is it? Film 1940s, I think.
It was 19. Natalie Wood was a little girl in it.
Yeah, she was a little girl, right? Yeah.
Whatever. Miracle on 34th Street. There it is.
Miracle on 34th.
There you go.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Well, and also I read that Trick or Treat took off after World War II because the idea of it. Now, I read the idea of it was introduced before by Irish immigrants. I don't know how valid that is, but that it took off after World War II because that was the end of sugar rationing. They had sugar rationing. Candy was harder to get until after that sugar rationing ended after World War II. And that's when Trick or Treat took off. And I always point out trick or treat is not how pagans celebrate Halloween. I mean, I mean neo-pagans, that's not how they celebrate. That's not trick or treating. It's not a pagan activity.
Maybe we could hear more about how they do that after the break. Is it time, Don?
It is. Let's talk about commercialization here.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have some questions, and the first one is, do you struggle with finding the right wine to bring to your pagan goat festivals? Do you wonder what to wear to your neighbor's neo-Nazi parties? Do you get anxiety attacks when trying to find the right picket sign to share with your friends from Westboro Baptist Church? Well, now you can put an end to all the worries that come from trying to fit in with people on opposing sides of the culture wars, because you can find the perfect gift for any ideology at the Coexist Boutique. This week's special deal, in honor of the 50th anniversary of Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, relive the days when university students subjected their professors to public shaming sessions in which they would break their eyeglasses and publicly rebuke them at great length for not exhibiting politically correct opinions and behaviors. Oh, wait, that's going on right now in the USA. Well, in any case, this week's special deal is Cultural Revolution Eyewear, genuine smashed Chinese prescription lenses and frames, the same ones formerly owned by PhDs and university administrators in China dating back to 1966 to 1976, the years of the Cultural Revolution, at 99 cents a pair. You can't beat the deal at the Coexist Boutique for when you care enough to take your hands off your loved ones' throats long enough to pick out the perfect gift. So beat a path down to the Coexist Boutique and get that Cultural Revolution eyewear.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. I groan, inwardly groan.
I don't see how you can pass that up. I personally don't.
Well, that's probably the Holy Spirit helping you to intercede for us with groanings and utterings.
Oh dear.
Yeah. I knew it was something.
You knew it was something, yeah. So it sounds to me like one of the things that you're basically suggesting is the holiday, as we currently have it, is largely an American invention, not really an adoption of either Roman Catholicism or paganism.
Well, let me jump in here. I know that a lot of my Hispanic friends, they have something called Day of the Dead, which I believe is celebrated the same day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, they just can't get over the fact that, or many of them, the Christian ones, can't get over the fact that we allow our children to celebrate that day, because they don't really see it as all that different from their Day of the Dead. And it really bothers them, the ones that I've talked to.
Doesn't Day of the Dead, does it come from the Catholic Church? It's Mexican, right?
I don't know. They're convinced that the Mexican Americans I've spoken with make it out to be really very pagan, kind of a very syncretistic. If there's any Catholicism at all, it's secondary to the pagan themes that they complain about. That's the way I've heard it. I'm not an expert on Day of the Dead.
Well, so, Halloween is not the Day of the Dead. I mean, trick or treating.
I know that.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying we have a lot of Hispanics in our country, and I imagine some of them have, they've assimilated and they can tell the difference between our Halloween and their Day of the Dead. But there are lots who it's like a stumbling block for them.
Yes, and somebody did ask me about Day of the Dead, and I said, well, as far as I know, that's a Mexican custom, and I'm really addressing American customs. I do realize there are a number of people in this country from Mexico, and I as far as I know, I don't know if it's celebrated in any other country aside from Mexico. Maybe it is. I could be wrong, but I was thinking, because of Don saying earlier about the Catholic thing of All Hallows Eve and honoring the dead, that maybe that came from the Catholic Church. or maybe it's a mixture of that, and with some pagan ideas, or maybe it was a pagan idea, and I don't know. To me, it's too much of a coincidence that Day of the Dead is on the same day of All Hallows
Yeah.
Eve.
Well, All Hallows Eve never, in my mind, it wasn't. It was not about All Saints Day. Was technically, if there was any Day of the Dead, it was All Saints Day, because that was November 1st, because there are dead saints, who were canonized by the church. The eve of All Saints Day was never. There might have been special masses said on it just to prepare people for All Saints Day. I don't know. I don't remember hearing of them. But the connection between Day of the Dead and All Saints Day, I guess, is maybe whereas All Saints Day only celebrated special dead people, maybe the eve was used in Mexico to celebrate all the rest of the dead people. I don't know. I don't know.
The History Channel has this. While October 31 is Halloween, November 1 is El Dia de los Inocentes, or the Day of the Children, and All Saints Day. November 2 is All Souls Day, or the Day of the Dead. According to tradition, the gates of heaven are opened at midnight, October 31, and the spirits of children can rejoin their families for 24 hours.
Oh, starting at midnight, October 31, is that what it's saying?
Correct. Uh-huh.
Does that mean so would that mean like from going from October 30th to October 31st? Midnight?
It just says midnight, at midnight on October 31. So I don't know if that's between October. I think it's probably October 31 to November 1.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it comes from that idea. Who knows? And actually, and this is only one of thousands of pagan type holidays around the world in all cultures. I mean, there's all kinds of things to do with communication with the dead in every indigenous culture on earth. Any country, the indigenous culture is going to have those kind of holidays, and even later, more advanced pagan type holidays will have things to do with the dead, and things like that. So, I think sometimes we don't know the exact origin of something like that. We can look up historically and get some facts, but how the practices develop is sort of a cultural thing that just happens, and nobody necessarily documents it. So you have cultural practices all over the world mixed in with religions. People have told me about like folk Islam, which is Islam. They officially claim Islam, but in different countries, they'll combine it with their folk beliefs, which are the indigenous beliefs. So it's a mixture.
So it's kind of secretized also.
Yeah, and that's where you
really, I mean, that's pretty much the entire TBN network, though, isn't it? I mean,
and for example, I'll give you another example. My sister served in a country that was partly Islamic, and the group she was serving with, that she was ministering to, officially followed the Islamic religion. They did some of the things that Islam teaches. They didn't do all of them. They didn't practice all of them, but they mixed it in. If you asked them if they were Muslim, they would say yes. However, they mixed it in with a lot of folk beliefs, a lot of practices that were actually witchcraft and superstition, where for example, mothers would put these little symbols. They would pin these little symbols to their babies' clothes that was supposed to protect them from the evil eye. I mean, that's not Islamic. That's a folk pagan, superstition.
You can find that in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually, the evil eye thing is pretty much very widespread. And in this country where she was, that they had that. and she said there was a lot of practices like that. That was just part of their culture, the culture of these people. And that's true. We see that all around the world. So I think that that's one reason it's very hard to trace these practices and try to figure out where they came from or where they started or who started them. Sometimes it's just kind of something that develops from, the culture mixing with pagan beliefs.
Sure. Well, Penjamin comments that if true with festival celebrations, Day of the Dead celebrations can refer to pagan origins or All Hallows variously depending on the intent of the family. So he's going back to intent of the family, and not necessarily that there's a hard and fast, this is what it means always in every case. And I think that's what we're kind of struggling with here as we talk about this sort of a thing. Should a family celebrate Halloween or not celebrate Halloween? We all three have said you have to decide for yourself. There's no hard and fast rule on this that we can really find. If you believe,
if you want to pay us to come up with one, we might be open to that.
We could invent one, I'm sure. Yeah.
If you write out a big enough check, I'll be glad to tell you how to live your life. But you have to sign these waivers so that I don't get sued if something goes wrong.
I think you alluded to, Ron, Hispanics that you have spoken to that really struggle with this because of their history with what goes on in their home country, and how can we do that here? And I would say you don't really want to argue them into participating. I don't think that's
right.
That's our calling. Our focus has to be on who is Jesus, what is salvation, what is the Christian faith about. This is maybe an important issue, but a secondary issue. It isn't a matter of the faith.
Well, I'll tell you, I kept out of the discussion. I was working at a place where we had a lot of Hispanics, and I just didn't want to insert an opinion there that might get attacked by both sides. So
yeah,
I kept my powder dry.
I'm used to being attacked by both sides, and I'm okay with that. Even because my stock line when people call me or email me or take out an ad and go, you're mean, you're whatever. I'll agree. I go, I could be right. I might be short and fat as well. A lot of things I might be. In fact,
I didn't think it was worth it.
I can give you my kids' phone numbers, and they can tell you a lot of worse things about me. But the question is, am I wrong? That's the question.
That's the question.
Yeah. Well, I'm used to being attacked by both sides too. Some think I'm being too, I don't know. I'm not being rigid enough, and others think I'm being too rigid. And I mean, I get it all ways. So, I'm very used to that. But I really, I just keep trying. I try as hard as I can to give people the facts and tell them that that's what matters. How you feel, what you think, what you've heard, if it's not based on facts, is meaningless. It's just meaningless. I mean, a Christian, to me, the biblical principle is that we go by truth. I mean, if we are preaching and teaching a Savior who is the way, the truth, and the life, then we should care about truth. And we should not want to promote things or help promote things that aren't truth or aren't based on truth, that come from myths and come from fear-based rumors, or jack chick tracks. I said it really fast that time. We need to care about the truth. And I'm afraid that has gone, the idea of objective truth doesn't exist in the church anymore. I don't even know if people could say that if you ask them, what is it? I'm not sure in a poll how many would be able to say what it is. Honestly, truth? Objective truth.
Yeah.
Do people even know what that means?
I don't know. We say it doesn't exist anymore. My question is, has it ever really existed for most people?
Objective truth?
Yeah. I say that for this reason. We seem to be shocked when we see heresy permeating the church, for example, as you and I are. And as I think about it, maybe because I've been doing this a really long time, maybe I'm only shocked that this moves so fast relative to the Enneagram. But as we look back all the way to creation, what we find is humans easily fall into believing false things. Adam and Eve.
Well, yeah, true.
Right? And as we follow through the history of the nation of Israel, we see this repeated process of coming to a true understanding of the true God, and within a very short time, abandoning or syncretizing it in some other way with
Right.
surrounding pagan practices and that sort of thing. I mean, Moses has gone for 40 days, and what is the first thing they do after they've seen all these amazing miracles? They go, oh, we don't know where Moses is at, and we need a God to worship, so you better make us one, like right now.
But now
that's true.
But even though the church, it's interesting though that even though the church it doesn't seem to have a lot of room for objective truth, a lot of politicians prefer truth over facts. They choose truth over facts. I thought that was interesting. That came out recently. What's that?
Taking the stand that truth is the facts, and the facts are the truth.
I don't know. I heard him say it.
Bring politics into that. That's a whole other story, and I'll never
was on a stump
tell
speech
about that.
but actually,
you know,
actually, to say you believe in truth over facts is really just another way of saying you don't believe in objective truth. If he was being serious, I don't know. I don't even know how I mean, I don't even know if he realized what he was saying when he said it. But a lot of people would agree with that statement and think it's worded perfectly right, because I choose truth over facts in the sense that I choose my truth over however your truth interprets the facts.
Right. Well, yeah, that's kind of the underlying message there.
One of the things that we're working on the blog for this week, and we're dealing with the question of definitions and how people use words. And this applies also to holidays. How do you define what's going on? And one of the things that Joy and I were kind of talking about and working on it was the Parliament of the World's Religions in 1993. And part of the theme that went on there is that we need to make sure that the newspapers, politicians, etc., are all communicating the truth. And then they did this dance, a very artistic dance, where they're talking about this truth and that truth, and then they stop and do a mockery of Christian truth or gospel truth or something like that. And what you discover not too long into the parliament is truth is simply what I personally define it to be. There is no objective truth. There's only my truth, and facts should never interfere with those.
That's true in the non-Christian world. I mean, that's a New Ager believes different levels of truth. There are different levels of truth. I mean, I used to believe that, and it made total sense to me. But I'm talking about Christians. You know, Christians should have a better idea of truth than the general culture, or secular culture or New Agers. But I'm seeing that falling away, because ever since I've been on Facebook and I've been posting stuff and dealing with a lot of false ideas in the church from the New Age, what I get from a lot of Christians is this helped me, or I had a good experience with it, or they use a very a fallacious argument to support it. Well, this product is natural, so therefore it's better than else. And this kind of it's a fallacy. They're not using reason, and they're not using facts, and they're rejecting the truth in favor of what they want to believe. So it boils down to, and I'm not the first person to say this, people believe what they want to believe. That's what it boils down to.
Well, poisonous toadstools are 100% natural, I hear.
Yeah.
So is
arsenic and opium flowers.
So is uranium.
But that's
there you have it. That's a natural
I've almost
product.
left that area because I'm exhausted by it. But I hardly post on it anymore. But because that idea comes straight out of the New Age, and it's been bought by the church, by a lot of people in the church. They've totally bought into it, and they're thinking like New Agers. And I can't. It's too big for me. I can't keep chipping away at it anymore. I've done my part for years and years and years, and I don't know how many posts and hundreds of comments and trying to show people the facts. And it just wore me out. It just wore me out. So, I have to move on, and I'll answer questions, but there's certain areas I'm just not posting on anymore on Facebook.
Well, it's Larry Generous says, I've seen enough real horror in the war as a participant to not want to celebrate it as a fancy holiday. And I understand that. There are certain films I've never watched Friday the 13th, for example. I don't really need that, because you can't unsee that stuff once you see it anyway, right?
Right.
I take a sort of a dim view on horror. What is it? Not horror, on these Halloween houses where you go through to be scared. You don't have to go through that to be scared. Just live in Illinois and watch them play with your taxes. And that will scare you.
Just watch what they do in Springfield. It's like
exactly. I have real life scares. I don't have to go to those houses for that.
Well, I did like some horror movies before I was a Christian. I saw all the Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. I don't like gore and slasher stuff, so I wasn't interested in those real big slasher horror things. But I saw the Freddy Krueger things, which were truly, at least to me at the time, very scary. But I was drawn to it. Now, since I become a Christian, I'm not drawn to it that much. I still was a little bit. Over time, the longer I was a Christian, the less I was interested in certain things, including that. And I mean, I'm and now some films might be called a horror film, but they're just really a good kind of thriller.
Or mystery or
twist ending or a mystery or something. Yeah. But and of course we're not here to tell people that they should be watching horror films. We're talking about Halloween. And like I said at the very beginning, Halloween is a time when, movie people promote horror movies, and Netflix wants you to watch their horror movies, etc., because it's associated. That's the problem. It's associated. All this bad, scary stuff's associated with Halloween. Doesn't mean that it actually should be, but it is.
Yeah.
And that's
it's back to commercialization again. And speaking of commercialization, we have a sponsor to hear from, I believe.
I was just going to mention, though, that I saw this meme the other day. It had this particular blonde lady from an Alfred Hitchcock movie, and the caption read, "Why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near?" Well, anyways, I thought
now that might be called a horror movie, but I think actually that's a good movie, The Birds.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I like Alfred Hitchcock. I do.
Yes.
So Psycho,
very good, yeah.
I didn't like Psycho.
That was
scary.
My parents considered that so scary they would not let me watch it as a child.
Yeah.
They didn't want me to have nightmares.
My parents wouldn't let me watch anything they thought was scary. They wouldn't let me go see the Abominable Snowman movie that I wanted to see.
Oh well, I hope this isn't too scary, but we have a special sponsor here who's asking questions. Are your churches getting a little too individualistic for your tastes? Do you often wish it wasn't so hard to fit in with new Christians you meet? Would you rather be part of a collective than a uniquely gifted member of a fellowship? Well, now you can find freedom from the hassles of having your own personal identity with Assimilation Ministries. Our pastoral staff is ready to relieve you of the burden of being yourself. No need to choose a new identity. We choose it for you. All assimilations come with our trans lifetime guarantee. Satisfaction is irrelevant. Assimilation Ministries, where implanted in the body is not just a slogan. So check it out. Assimilation Ministry is coming to a galaxy near you.
Actually, I have to say something about your Assimilation Ministry. That's exactly what's going on with Enneagram.
They
want you to fit into a number, and then and a wing, which is so ridiculous. It's all made up. Then you're supposed to get to know God better that way and and relate to others
Can
all
I
because
be 7 of 9?
you're a 4, and Don's a 7, so now I know how to relate to Don, and I'm a 4 or whatever. And that's exactly I thought of that the whole time you were doing that commercial.
There's 7 of 9 in Unimatrix 001. So
Assimilate into the Enneagram. Assimilate, become part of the Enneagram, and let it become part of you.
Right. That's right. Now, so here's an interesting thing.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
You'll have a group of Christians who will be terrified about occultic overtones within Halloween, and rush into Enneagram training, which was invented by a Russian mystic, which had nothing to do with personality at the time it was invented. How does that work? Why does that happen?
Exactly. And I actually thought of that today because I was thinking about how we were going to do this program on Halloween. And I was thinking it's so ironic that so many Christians, Halloween's a big topic of discussion as whether to participate or not, or how to participate. And then some are worried about all the occult overtones that they see. And at the same time, the Enneagram, which actually is from the occult, and the types actually were added via occultic methods by Ichazo and Naranjo, is gaining all this ground so fast I can't keep up with it. I get messages and comments every day from people who are having to deal with this in their church. And, it's so ironic to me that they are gobbling up something that is occultic, and then they're worried about Halloween, and it's really the opposite. Halloween, you have no need to worry about Halloween, but there's a lot of reasons to worry about the Enneagram, because it's changing people's view of God and their self, and it's giving them a false framework for spiritual growth and for knowing God. It's replacing. I see it as a replacement for God's word. Honestly,
that's a really good point. Is Halloween is having kids from your neighborhood coming to your door, and you're dropping candy of whatever kind with gospel tracts taped to it or not? Is that going to change your view of the nature of God, the nature of sin, the nature of salvation?
Right.
Whereas the Enneagram, which is permeating the church right now, and it's shocking to me, frankly, which was admittedly channeled and communicated by automatic writing, channeled by an angel called Metatron. Sounds like a Disney character. Or Gabriel. It depends on which story you hear about Naranjo. Akazo. So, which one should we be most concerned about, actually, and which one are we seemingly, as a church, least concerned about?
Exactly. And that the Enneagram is a worldview, and not only the problems you mentioned, but it's bringing in Richard Rohr into the church, who is heretical. I noticed a comment. Somebody doesn't know what the Enneagram is, so I should say real quickly, it's a nine-sided, 9-pointed diagram, and each of the 9 points supposedly relates to a type, a personality type, and you're supposed to figure out which type you are originally. And now they give tests for it, which wasn't the original way. It keeps changing because it really can be anything you want. It can be anybody can take the Enneagram and do anything they want with it and say what anything means, because there's no standard or model, because it's totally meaningless and invalid. And only New Agers think it has meaning, except now Christians do too. Richard Rohr actually says the Enneagram is a sword of the spirit.
Oh, really?
Yes, he says that in the beginning of his book, and he says that it's like the spirit of truth. So he compares the Enneagram to the Holy Spirit, or to something from the Holy Spirit, which, of course, to me is just, it's beyond.
Blasphemous.
I have no words. I have no words for that, really.
I tried to be conservative in how I use the word blasphemous, but that is blasphemy.
It is blasphemous. You're right, Ron. And I'm conservative in the use of that word as well. And that his teachings, his influences in the church now via the Enneagram, because a lot of the Enneagram teachers and pastors promote and recommend Richard Rohr or his book. And right there, just those two things I gave you are at the beginning of his book. And yet these pastors, I'm thinking, did they really read his book? I'm thinking, how could they read that and think that was okay? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But anyway, yes. So I actually thought of that irony, and I didn't know if I would get to say something on the program that it's ironic. People are worried about Halloween, but they're not worried about the Enneagram. Now, there are a lot of Christians very concerned. And I know Christians who have left their church because they have started promoting the Enneagram, and it's become the center of the sermons, like they've had 9 weeks and they spend each week on one type. The pastor will preach on one type 1, type 2, type 3 for 9 weeks. Or 10 weeks, and they may be given intro and a summary. Maybe it's 11 weeks. I've seen this in several cases. So, yeah, that's what we should be concerned about. We're concerned about the occult and the New Age and channeled entities, spirit contact, and really, truly what you might call scary stuff, although Christians shouldn't be afraid. Then let's be concerned about the Enneagram, not Halloween.
Yeah, we just did a show on this a few weeks back with Marcia. We titled Richard Rohr, Enneagram and Heresy. And so Stephanie could go back and look at that one. And we've done an article, The Road Away from Him, on our blog. Marcia has scores of articles up there and information.
Yes, a lot on Facebook.
Yeah, and several of us are trying to aggressively warn churches who are, they're marching their entire staffs through Enneagram training, and then going into 9-week series on the Enneagram. The idea supposedly is, because Stephanie asked, what is this supposed to do?
Right.
It's supposed to indicate to you, according to one of the writers, Chris Huertz, in his book, The Sacred Enneagram, to get you back to your original hurt, quote unquote. Your original wound is actually the word he used.
Right.
So you can get you to your pre-wounded perfect state of being, and then find who you are in Christ through that.
Yeah,
this is the path to God.
Because Paul couldn't talk enough about that, could he? Your original
and
wound.
Jesus, we mistakenly think Jesus said he was the path, but no, he was saying I'm the path shower. The Enneagram is
there
the
you
path.
go. Yeah.
Okay. So we departed from Halloween just slightly, but only because there are things that should scare us more.
Yes.
Than little kids coming to your door to get corn candy or whatever it is that you're going to give them.
Candy corn, yeah.
Oh, you're not that chintzy, are you, Don? Corn candy? Come on.
No, Joy only gives out the good stuff. She buys the good stuff because whatever's left over, then we can eat.
Gotta give out Dove bars and I don't know.
Well, they'll
something that melts, though.
Bars,
Well, what do you say?
I think we covered a lot. And we got the Enneagram in there. So I think people have pretty much the most important information they need on Halloween.
I think so too. So, to kind of just sum up, say, there are some religious overtones from paganism, but we should not shape our worldview on a particular day based on its association or former association with paganism. Because, in fact, if you say today happens to be Tuesday, you have now associated the day with paganism, since that is the name of a pagan deity.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
So is Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Sunday is the day for the sun.
Correct. Right. Thor's Day, Woden's Day.
Yeah.
You have a similar thing with the months of the year. If you name the months of the year, that's pagan. We don't view it as pagan because we bring a different definition to it. We're marking the calendar. We're not celebrating pagan deities. Many other sorts of things. Wedding rings come from pagan rituals as well. So much of our culture incorporated I think one of the things you were saying earlier about Islam is they brought in some of their native traditions into their religious views, and it transforms them in a sense. So should we be concerned about Halloween? It depends. If your child is out in the back setting up a sacrificial altar to sacrifice a goat, probably you should be worried about that.
But it's not because of Halloween. It's because they're into some kind of
exactly. They're into something else. So
yeah.
It isn't because of the day. It's because they're into something they should not be involved with.
Let's make distinctions.
But make distinctions.
That's what I'm always saying. We need to make distinctions.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Ron, you might want to walk us out of here. Everyone else, it's been great watching you all participate. These are serious issues, obviously. Halloween, we need to have, as Marcia pointed out, the facts about the case and then make a decision on how you want to handle it. The same is true with the Enneagram. So go ahead, Ron.
Our resident cult leader profiler is Neil Bormy. Our wardrobe manager is See How It Fits You. Our culinary services come from Chef Ham and Cheese. Our tinfoil hat provisioner is Just In Case. Our Jehovah's Witnesses coverage comes from Armageddon and D. Opposer. Our Mormon archives manager is Polygamus. Our liberal denominations bureau chief is Lucy Goosey. Our transgender issues coverage comes from Ben Hur. Our special correspondent for cults based on the Hindenburg disaster and flying turkeys, OD Humanity. Our fact-checking supervisor is Yoleg Pulling. Our technical assistance comes through Murky Research. Our legal advisors are at the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Our grievance resolution director is Giovanna Pisami. Our director of privacy assurance is Wiretapping, and original idea sourcing comes from Drew LeBlanc. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in cooperation with Emergency Manicure Productions, both of whom are solely responsible for this content. And I don't know why the font's all messed up. I don't know why the copyright's not showing. But you'll never be able to prove that in a court of law.
Never, ever.
So, not a single time.
Penjamin chimes in and says candy corn is just wrong, and I agree with that. So.
Oh, candy corn is delicious.
Marcia, we will be seeing you on Facebook shortly. Everybody else, join us next week. We're going to be talking about, and Ron is going to have to read the book, so I'm going to remind him right now. Joyous Encounters.
Oh, thank you. Okay, you've got it on my shelf.
Story, one of our favorite teachers of first century Greek. So blessings to you all. Adios.
Okay, thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.